Now, let us discuss about two-dimensional array. So, two-dimensional array, how we can use two-dimensional array. So, this is another type of array. The two-dimensional array also, we can do the same kind of operations. But first of all, we'll see how to create a two-dimensional array. Two-dimensional array. So, two-dimensional array and single-dimensional, what is the major difference? If it is a single-dimensional array, we have only rows like this. 0 row, first row, second row, third row, fourth. This index is basically representing the row number, okay? This is single-dimensional array. And our two-dimensional or multi-dimensional means we have a rows along with the columns. Like this. Like this. So these are the rows and these are the columns. Columns and rows. Rows will start from 0. This is 0 row, first row, second row, third row. Similarly, column index also start from 0. This is 0 column, first column, second column, and so on. This is called two-dimensional array. If you simply say it is a tabular format. Rows and as well as columns. Rows index will start from 0. Even column index also start from 0. But how can we operate the data? How can we add the data? How can we retrieve the data? Again, by using index. For example, in this, I want to store 100 in this particular position. So what is the row number of this? 0. What is the column number of this? 0. So how to represent this location is A of 0 and 0 equal to 100. Now this 100 will be stored in the 0 row, this is a column. First bracket we specify the row number, second bracket we specify the column number. So this number will go and store in the 0 row and 0 column. So here it will store. Similarly, here I want to store some value. So row number is 3, column number is 2. So A of 3 and 2 like this. So in the third row, second column, the 500 will be added. At the same time, retrieval also. If you print this statement in the println, then this will return the value which is there in the 0, 0 position. Same thing if you put this in the println, this will return the value which is there in the third row and second column. Okay. So this is called two-dimensional array. So we have multiple rows and also we can have multiple columns also. N number of rows and n number of columns. There is no limit. You can put n number of rows and n number of columns. Okay, this is single and two-dimensional array. The difference between single and two-dimensional. Single dimensional, we have only rows. Whereas in two-dimensional, we have rows as well as columns. Okay. Now we'll see how to perform in different type of operations in two-dimensional array. So almost the same operations we are going to do. Whatever operations we do in the single dimensional, same type of operations we can also do in two-dimensional array. So now we'll see how to declare, how to add values, how to find size. Here size in the sense not only rows, column size also we can find. And how to read a specific or single value and how to read all the values from two-dimensional array. Now we'll see one by one. So I'll create another example. New class. This is called two or multi-dimensional array. Two-dimensional array. Taking main method, say finish. Okay. So listen this very carefully. Little bit complicated. Just listen. Very simple. You need to more focus on this. So first thing, how to declare an array. Again, there are two different approaches here. Just like a single dimensional array, we have seen two different approaches, right? What is standard, other one is dynamic. One is fixed array. We can say this is a fixed array and this is a dynamic. So fixed means what? First we have to declare an array, then we can assign the data. And here we can declare array, immediately we can assign the data in the curly braces. Same two approaches are applicable for two-dimensional array also. So declaring array. Okay, so approach 1. First approach. So first declaration. In the A, instead of one bracket, we say two brackets. And equal to new, again get type, and again two brackets. And in the first bracket, we specify number of rows. In the second bracket, we specify number of columns. Okay. So for example, I want to have 3 columns, 3 rows, and then 2 columns. Okay. 3 rows and 2 columns. You can have n number of rows and number of columns. You can have 10 columns, 20 columns also. No problem. So it depends upon the data. We can specify the total number of rows and total number of columns. So this is called declaration. So then what will happen if you create an array like this? It will allocate 3 rows and 2 columns. So the array will be created like this. 3 rows and 2 columns. 0 row, first row, second row. 0 column, first column. Always index start from 0 only. So that we have to always remember. Okay. Now, I want to store some data here. Let's say here, there, 200, 300, 4, 5, and then 600. So to store the data, we have to again write multiple statements. So here I can say A of 0, 0. 0, 0 position, we want to say 100. Okay, and then A of same 0 row, and first column, 200. So with this, first row is completed. 0 row is completed. Now the second. A of 1, 0. First column, first row, 0 column. Here, 300. Then A of same row and column number 1. Here, 4. Now the third thing. A of 2. And here, 0. 500. A of 2, same row, 1. Or to 600. So you can have n number of rows and n number of columns. So this is how we can assign the data. So this is approach 1. First declaration, and then you have to specify number of rows and columns. These are fixed, and then you can add some data. So again, when we have to go with this approach, if you already know how much data you want to store, in future, if you don't have any plan to add new data, then you can go with this approach. Okay, this is, you can say, fixed type of an array. This is one approach. Now, in the second approach, how can we add multiple rows and columns? Second approach. Now, approach 2. So it is more simpler again. First, and one more thing, actually, before doing this. In the declaration, these brackets you can keep in different places also. Same thing, you can write like this. Okay, you can write like this. So you can put these brackets, you can put this bracket, remove from here, you can put this before the variable also. This is also right notation. Okay, in some places you can see this. And by saying this, you should not be confused, okay? You can put those brackets before the variable also. And you can put the bracket after the variable also. Or you can put one bracket before the variable, another bracket after the variable. This is also correct. All 3 notations are correct. And this is also correct. You can put 2 brackets before the variable is correct. And the next one is what? You can put bracket before and after. You can put this bracket, one bracket before, another bracket after. So this is also correct notation. Okay? So just follow one approach. All 3 syntaxes are correct. You can put brackets, both the brackets after the variable, or you can put both the brackets before the variable, or you can put bracket before one and after one. Anything is correct. And same thing is applicable for single dimensional also. But go back to single dimensional. So this is also correct. And you can put like this. Okay, you can put this bracket before the variable also. This is also right notation. And this is not there. So I can put the bracket before and after the variable. So anything is correct. This is another way. I will put like this comment, okay? Both are correct. Right. Now, come back to the two-dimensional. So this is the first approach. So we can declare an array and specify total number of rows and columns. And then we have added the data in all the positions. Now, in the second approach, how can we declare and store the data in two-dimensional? So let us come like this. So now, second approach. First, declare an array, A, two brackets, this is same, now curly braces, but here, this time, not only rows, we also have columns, right? So how can we store it? We have to follow a different approach. Take one big curly braces. Now, again inside this is the first row, another curly brace. Here we can specify the first row numbers. In the first row, that means 0 row, what are the values we have? 100 and 200. So we can say 100, 200. So this is the first row. That is your 0 element. Comma, open another curly brace. Here 300, comma 400. This is the second row elements. Comma, but another braces. 500, comma 600. That's it. So this is how we can store. Okay, and if you are having confusion, you can keep this in the next line like this. It will be more clear, right? So first row, second row, and the third. You can also put like this. This is the way we can store data in two-dimensional array. So if we have another column, no problem. You can add another column like this. Here we can have another number. Okay. So like this, we can store data in two-dimensional array directly. So take one big curly braces. Inside this, every row, data we specify the curly braces. So this is the first row, this is second row, third row, and you can put comma, and then you can add more number of rows. Because this is the last row, so I'm just removing the comma. So this is how we can store data in two-dimensional array directly. Again, this is more dynamic. In future, if you want to add more rows and columns, you can still add. Okay. And if you want to remove existing, you can directly remove it because it will allocate memory locations dynamically. Depends upon how many rows and how many columns you have added. Accordingly, it will allocate memory. Okay. So this is how we can store data in two-dimensional array. You can go with the first approach or second approach. Now, we'll see the different topics. How to find the size of an array. Size. In the previous example, we have only a number of rows. There are no columns. So we have used length. That will return number of rows. So here also same thing we will use to get the number of rows. So to get the number of rows in array, we can simply say number of, or we can say length of rows. Okay, and here a dot length. So this will always gives the total number of rows. Even it is a single dimensional or two dimensional. A dot length, because in the two dimensional also we have a number of rows. So when I say a dot length, obviously it will return 3. But how to find a number of columns in a particular row? Where exactly the rows or columns are present? In the particular row. First row is a high priority. The row contains the columns. So, if you want to find out number of columns in a specific row, almost every row is having same equal number of columns. So, but we need to take at least one row to find number of columns. So, how can we do this? A dot length. This will give you length, number of rows. But we want columns. What we can do? Here we specify the row number. Suppose when I say 0 here, now this length keyword will find out number of columns in a 0 row. So for example, let's try to print this. Okay, so A of 0 dot length. And here I will write length of columns. And then concatenation. Just observe this. So you can see here, A of 0 dot length. So this will give you number of columns in a particular row. A of 0. So when I run this, this will give you total number of rows are 3, columns are 2. Right? Exactly same. So almost every row is having same number of columns, so you don't need to change this value. But if we have a different number of columns in every row, then specifically we have to specify from which row you want to find number of columns. So accordingly we have to specify the row number. Okay. So if you want to find number of rows in a array, you can directly say a dot length, array name dot length. If you want to find number of columns, first to go to a specific row and then find out length. That will give you number of columns in a particular row. Okay. So this is how we can get number of rows and number of columns in particular two-dimensional array. Now, the next operation. How to read a single value from an array. How to read a specific value or a single value from an array. Suppose I want to read a value from second row and first column. What is the value which we have here is 600. Second row and first column. So how can we read it? System.out.println 8 of 2 brackets, second row, first column. Like this. Second row and first column. And about this, you can extract any value just by passing row number and a column number. So this will obviously return 600. One specific value we are able to read that. And particular row number and particular column. You can just specify like this. Now, if you want to read all the data, I want to read all the data, then how can we do this? So these are the values you have to specify in 20 statements. 0, 0 means 100 it will begin. 0, 1 means 200. 1, 0 means 300. 1, 1 means 400. 2, 0 means again 500. 2, 1 means 600. So multiple println statements we have to write. Okay, multiple println statements you have to write. What is the third row, second column? Which one you are talking about? Here we have to pass index number. Remember. So here 600 means what? Second row. Because index will start from 0. Okay, index always start from 0. That is the reason. This is second row, not third row. Similarly, column index also start from 0. That is how we have a 0 column, first column. There is no second column in this. You got my point? Vijay Singh. I've understood. So, index will start from 0. You should not forget that, okay? There is no third row, second column in this. Okay, so do we have a third row in this array? Third row. There is third, no? No. So this is an index number. When I say 2, 2 is an index number. Second row. When I say 1, 1 is an index number. That's a column. 600. So 2 and 1 means these are the index numbers. Second row and first column. Second in the index is representing the row. Remember. Second row and first column. Or second index and first index. Okay. Now, so we'll see how to read all the data from two-dimensional array. All the rows and all the columns. Everything we have to read. So, then how can we do this? I want to read all the rows and all the columns. Then we have to write a looping statement. So, very important. Let's try to understand very clearly. So if you want to read all the rows and columns, earlier we have only rows, right? So just one for loop is enough to read rows. We just increment their index value one by one, and we are able to read the data from single dimensional array. Now this time we also have columns. In every row we have a columns. So now what we have to do is we have to write two different for loops. One for loop can have another for loop, that is nested for loop. We have to write it two different for loops, okay? One is for incrementing the rows, for one for loop. For every row, we have to increment the columns. For that we have to write another for loop. So one for loop should have another for loop. For each row, we have to do multiple iterations. Row also we have to iterate parallelly. For every row, columns also iterate. Once all Once we need all the columns from the first row, then we will go to next row. Again, once we need all the columns, then we go to next row. Again, need all the columns, then we go to next row. So that's how we have to create 2 looping statements. 2 loops are required. Okay? Now, let's see the classic for loop first. A normal for loop. By using index, we can do it. Now, so there are 2 for loops are required. So you understood, right, why 2 for loops are required? Because this time we have to increment the number of rows. At the same time, we have to increment the columns also. That's the reason 2 for loops are required. So first, 1 for loop. This is responsible for rows incrementation. So where is the row number starts? Int I equal to 0. And what is the condition? How many rows we have? How many rows we have? So we can say I less than or equal to 0, 1, 2. You can put 2 here. I less than or equal to 2. Or if you want to put number of rows, you can say I less than or less than 3. This is also right. So for now I say I less than or equal to 2. Then what is the condition? Every time I'll increment row number by 1. So now just observe. Here this I is representing what? I is representing what? Row number. So instead of I, let me take another variable so that you can remember. R. Okay, R and take. R is representing row number, row index. Simple, you can say row index. So start from 0, R less than or equal to 2. Every time I'll increment R value by 1. So now once you enter into this block, so current value of R is what? 0. Now in the 0 row, we have to read all the columns data. So to read all the columns data, again we have to write one more for loop inside this for loop. One more for loop. And here this inner for loop is responsible for what? Incrementing the columns. So here R value 0. Currently we are in the 0 row. In the 0 row, we enter inside this block and this inner for loop should read the data from all the columns from 0 row. So now where we have to start column number here? Column index start from what? Int C equal to 0. Column index also start from 0. And how many times you have to repeat this? C less than or equal to. How many times we have to repeat the columns? 0 and 1. Only 2 columns. So you can say 1. 2 times you have to repeat. And C value also incremented by 1. Every time you have to increment by 1. This is inner for loop. Now come inside this. Observe, here row number is what? 0. Initially row number is what? 0. Condition is 2, now it will come inside. Here initially C number is what? 0. C number is also what? 0. So 0 row and here 0 column. Okay. Now come inside this. Now when you print this value, A of R and here C. We are passing row number, we are passing column number. So R value 0, that we are passing here, and here C value 0, that also we are passing. So what is the value we will get in the first iteration? First iteration. 0, 0 means what? 100. Okay, now it is got printed. Now after printing this statement, C value will be incremented by 1. Now what is the C value becomes now? 1. So condition is true or false? 1 less than or equal to 1. Condition is again true. Now again come inside. Now what is the current value of R? Still it is 0 only. And what is the current value of C? 1. It becomes 1. So 0 and 1. 0 and 1 means what? 200 is what printed. Okay? Now, C value will be incremented. Now it becomes 2. C value becomes 2. Now condition. 2 less than or equal to what? True or false? False. So as soon as this condition is false, then inner for loop will exit and again it will go to outer for loop and here R value will be incremented by 1. So it becomes 1 here. You got my point? So once the inner for loop is got completed and executed, finally it will come back to the outer for loop and then incremented R value by 1. Now R value 1. So it is focusing on first row. Again come to inner for loop. Again it will restart from 0. So C value is what? 0. And 1 and 0. 1 and 0 means what here? 1 and 0. 300. So 300 is got printed. Now C value will become 1. So 1 less than 1. Again condition is true. Now R value 1. C value is also 1. 1 and 1. Which is 400 is got printed. Now C value becomes 2. Then the condition becomes false. So once soon as this condition becomes false, then it will go to outer for loop again. Here R value will be incremented by 1. Again it becomes 2 now. So again 2 less than or equal to 2. True or false? True. So again it will come inside. Again it is restarting for loop. So again initial value 0. It will start from 0. CV 0. Now it will come here. So current value of R is what? 2. Current value of C is what? 0. 2 and 0. 2 and 0 means what? 500 is got printed. Now C value becomes 1. 1 less than or equal to 1. True. So again come here. Current value of R is what? 2. Current value of C is what? 1. 2 and 1. 2 and 1 means what? 600 is got printed. Now C value becomes 2. Then condition becomes false. Then it will go to outer for loop. And now R value becomes 3. As soon as R value becomes 3, 3 less than or equal to 2, condition false, then even outer for loop also will be exited. Okay? So once the outer for loop is got also exited, then we will get all the values from array. So this is how we have to write two different for loops. This is called outer for loop. This is called inner for loop. Once inner for loop is repetitions are completed, then again it will go to outer for loop. Value will be incremented. Then again come inside this for loop and again we'll repeat. That means for every row, we are repeating the number of columns. Suppose for loop is executed once and inner for loop will execute 2 times. Again go to outer for loop executed once. Again inner for loop will execute it twice because for every row there are 2 columns. Okay? So guys, I understood how it is going to work. So when you run this, you will get all the values from array like this. All the values, 100, 200, 3, 4, 5, 6, everything we will get. All the rows as well as all the columns. Okay? Again, if you just want to print in the tabular format, suppose I want to print 100, 2 line, 200 in one single line, 3 and 4 and another line, 5 and 6 and another line, you can just format the output. So just we need to change some pattern. So instead of print ln, you can simply say only print. Okay, and so that these columns are there, right? 1, 2. This will print in one single row. After completion of the first row, here you need to jump to the next line. So just to put only print ln, no value. It is just for jumping into the next line. Because once you printed 100 and 200 in single line, then it will go to the next line. Then 300 and 400 will be printed. And again go to the next line, then 6 and 5 and 600 will be printed. It's just like a ln meter. See how? Now you can see 100, 200, 3 and 400, 5 and 600 like this printed. But again I want to give some space between these. Numbers are combined, right? So to give one space, what you can do is here, you can choose some concatenate with some space. No value here, just a space. Concatenate with some space. After printing this value, concatenate with some space. Now, when I run this, exactly you will get to the tabular format. Okay? So this is how we can work with two-dimensional array. So can we use length property for rows and columns? Yes. So here I have hard-coded the number of rows and columns. So instead of that, if you want to specify length, if you don't know number of rows, if you don't know number of columns, and dynamically want to get the data, you can do it. So I can say a dot length, a dot length. Because we say less than or equal to, we should say minus 1 also. Okay, because we say less than or equal to means, Less than or equal to means a dot length minus 1. Similarly here, less than or equal to we are using. So obviously it is. Observe this, very simple. Now tell me this one. This is something new. Here it is fine. A dot length will give you length of a number of rows and say minus 1. But here we want to get number of columns in this particular row. So here we want to get number of columns in this particular row. Right? How to get it? A of r dot length minus 1. Okay? You understood the statement? Second for loop. Why I have created? Because if you want to find the number of columns, in which row you want to find them, that you have to specify. So A of R means what? Array R is representing row number R. So in this particular 0 row, it will find number of columns in the first term. In the second iteration of for loop, second iteration of inner for loop, R value becomes 1. So in the first row, it will find total number of columns. Initially, in the 0 row, it will find number of columns. In the second round of iteration, in the first row, it will find number of columns. So dynamically, it can put like this. So this will also gives the same thing. Why minus 1 here? Can anyone tell? In the previous example, I already told you why minus 1 is required. Why minus 1 is required? Okay, let's go to previous example one more time.